Hey everyone, thanks for stopping by today. Today I am doing a follow-up video showing a project share for the unboxing video I did for Your Creative Studio, and I decided to do a junk journal. And I used each of the sheets of the art paper that came in the collection, and those are going to be the covers of all of my signatures, and I cut out 3 signatures using the pattern paper. So here is the paper pack that came in the kit. So all 6 of those designs came in that paper pack, and I pulled out all the watercolor weight papers, and those are the ones I'm going to use in the junk journal. And I cut out in the black paper 110-pound cardstock. I cut out 3 of those, and I'll be gluing the pattern paper to the front and back side of those 3 pieces of 110-pound cardstock. And this is the die that I used to cut out all the cardstock and all the pieces of pattern paper. So I took that and I cut out all of the 6 pieces of the pattern paper, and then 3 of the pieces of cardstock. And this is what I'll use to build my journal. And on 3 of the sheets of the art paper, I did turn those over on the back side, so that when I glue them to the back side of the file folder paper, the pattern will be faced up. So there, I'm kind of showing how I did that. So you'll see that 3 of them have the flap on the left side, and 3 of them have it on the right side. So yeah, so here I'm just explaining that, and then I'll be gluing those together here. So that will create one of my signatures for my junk journal. And that 110-pound cardstock is pretty sturdy, so it holds up pretty well in a journal. So I'm going to go ahead and glue all of the pages on here, and I'll just show you a little bit of the recording of how I put glue all over the cardstock just to make sure that it adheres really well. This is probably my favorite piece of paper right here. I love the paintbrushes on there. So I'm just matching the corners up as good as I can so that it's lined up really well. And then definitely go through with your bone folder to make sure all the glue is in the paper fibers and it's stuck down really well. And then once I get all these done, I'm going to turn the pages over, and I'm gonna do the same thing to the 3 remaining pieces of paper and glue them to the opposite sides of these sheets. Finishing up the last one. Now there, I finished the last of the 3 pages, and that one is my front cover. Those are the 3 signatures that will be in my junk journal, and those are going to be all facing front because those have all the nice drawings on them. And there I am just trying to decide, am I gonna make it a tag flip or put binder rings in there? I hadn't really decided. So that is another thing that you have to consider when you're putting together a journal. And so I did have some scrap paper left, and I thought I really liked that particular piece of scrap paper, so I knew I wanted to use that. So I did go ahead and pull that out, and I trimmed it up a little bit, and I decided to use it on the bottom of one of the signatures on the back side. And I thought it would look cool to do some paper tearing to cover that area. But I'm going to cut it down here. I went and pulled out my paper punch I have that has 3 different size corners. I looked at all my corner punches and found this one to be the best one. So I went ahead and punched the corner on one edge of the paper so that it was rounded, and before I did the other edge, I still had to cut off a little bit from the opposite side. So once I get this punched out, I'll do that. And then I need to just measure where to trim off the excess on the other side. And I do that with a pencil so that I can mark that and then cut it off. So then I just cut that off straight and as straight as I can with my scissors. And then I did use the punch on that other corner so that corner was rounded also. So there, that looks really good. I made sure that top edge was glued down complete. Okay, so next I wanted to decorate the front and back covers of the book. So the kit that I got had all these heavyweight, and they're almost chipboard weight, ephemera pieces, and then this pack of ephemera also. And I was going through here and I wanted to see if some of these were stickers. So this little piece here has a shiny texture to it, and it is a sticker, and it's like a clear, almost like a washi or a vellum kind of sticker. So there are several of those in that little baggie, and here I decided I wanted to use this big paintbrush on the front cover. So I did put quite a bit of wet glue on here to make sure that it was stuck down really well. I do prefer to use wet glue over hot glue. It's just a personal preference of mine. And then this other piece is going to be the back page of my journal. So I wanted to use some of these pieces on the back side just to make it a little more interesting on the back of the book. So now I want to put some inserts in the journal, and I'm going to be using these recycled envelopes. I recently started watching Lilian Guerrero's YouTube channel, and she showed how she used recycled some junk mailer to make pockets for junk journals. So here I'm going to show you how I made one based on her tutorial. So I just found a bunch of my junk mail envelopes, and I found the ones with windows, and I trimmed them down about 2 inches from the right side of the opening of the window, so that there would be room on top. And then I went through my pile. This one doesn't have a window in it, but I wanted to use the envelope anyway. So if your flaps aren't glued down, make sure that you do end up gluing those down before or after you trim all of them. And here I'm just going to go through and trim the rest of the envelopes down. And this one I'm going to go ahead and glue close. So I'll just show you briefly how I went ahead and glued that flap down. You can use a glue stick if you don't want to use wet glue, but I didn't have a glue stick, so I just went ahead and used my wet glue for that. So here are all the envelopes that I trimmed down, and now I'm going to go through and trim the corners off of the top of each of the envelopes, the bottom where I trimmed off the excess. So I'm going to do all these envelopes that I have, and then they are ready to go. So I'm going to put those aside for now, and then I'm just going to fold over the top flap of each of the envelopes. And if you want to, you can go ahead and glue this flap down or leave it for later. So I did it later. And now I'm going to work on putting some additional inserts into the journal, some places where the recipient can write some journaling. And I went ahead and I got this booklet from the Dollar Tree, and I've just kind of had it. So I ripped out some pages. I think I put 3 or 4 together and folded them, and I did do some, they fit perfectly in here with the exception of having to round the corners. So I did round all 4 of the corners, and then I did use some Distress Oxide and Vintage Photo on around the edges just to give it a more distressed and aged look. So I like how those turned out, and then I made enough to do the same thing in the front section and the back section of the book. So I think altogether there's 8 of those in the book, 8 total pages. So I am just kind of assembling how I want to put the book together. And I want to show you briefly how I did make one of these pocket pages. For this, I wanted to add a liner, and Lilian added book pages in hers, but I wanted to use something different, and I did end up having to trim down the tops of the envelopes to make sure that they didn't stick out from the outside of the journal. So I trimmed those down and folded the flaps. And here is the sheet music that I decided to use, and it has a copyright date of like 1892, and this has just been in my piano music stash. So I decided to get it out and use it. It's very fragile and definitely weathered looking, so I thought I would get some of this out and start using it. So I do take a couple pages out of this book, and as you can see, there's a lot of yellowed pages in here, perfect for junk journaling. So here is one of the pages that I finished, and it looks great in there, and there's room for writing or decorating if you want to decorate the pages. Later you'll see that I did some rubber stamping on it. I did not do anything with the ephemera because I thought the recipient could decorate the pages how they wanted to. So here I am just trying to pick out a piece of the sheet music to fit into that envelope, and I cut this page down a little bit, but I ended up getting a different page because this was kind of already falling apart. So it doesn't have to be exact, but you can measure, and you can use a ruler if you don't want to use a pair of scissors to cut down your piece of sheet music. You just need to make it a little smaller widthwise than the pocket that you're putting it into so that it slides in easily. So here I am ripping one side of the paper, and I'm going to do the same thing to the other side after I measure to make sure that I have the right size of paper. Okay, so here's the piece of paper that I cut down to fit in the envelope, and you can see it's just a little bit long, and there is enough to fold it over to the back. And when Lilian, the way she did hers, she had like 1 or 2 inches hanging over the back of the envelope so that it gave it a little bit more interest. So I decided to do that here. And once I get it into place and everything is even, then I'm able to glue the flap down in the back, and it looks really good. Okay, so I went ahead and put the sheet music in, and it fits really nicely. I'm going to go ahead and trim off that little corner piece at the bottom rather than try to paper punch that old paper, and it's just a really tiny corner. And then I do want to glue down the side of the sheet music to the back part of the envelope. That way, it being a side loading pocket, stuff won't get tucked behind it instead of in front of it, and you wouldn't be able to see what you have in there. So there's the side is glued down, and then I'm going to take my scissors and just trim off those edges of the sheet music so they line up with the envelope flap. And there is the finished pocket. Okay, for this pocket, this will be a side loading pocket. So I want to go ahead and glue down the top of this particular pocket. That way it's only open on the side, and when you put it into the journal, you'll be able to tuck stuff in the side of this pocket. So there, I glued that down, and here you'll probably want to glue that flap down at some point. So here, this is just showing that it is a side loading pocket, and this is pretty much finished. And then this one is a top loading pocket, and so I've got one of each samples here. And I really like that all the envelopes have different, the inside of the envelopes are all different, which is really neat. I did not realize there were so many different designs inside of envelopes. So the next part of the journal I wanted to share with you is how I actually put the those pages that I distressed earlier and the pockets into the journal. I did use my punch to punch the pockets and the pages, and I inserted them into the journal. And here again, I'm showing you the sheet music that I used to insert into all of those pockets. And this is the front section, and I did go ahead and glue down that flap on the top so that it's not just sticking out and possibly getting ruined. So the back, there's room on there if the recipient wants to write on those pages or journal or decorate them further. And the sides, you can tuck stuff in there if you want to put tickets in there, or just memorabilia, whatever, receipts. And this one is top loading. And even on the front, if you want to just write stuff all over those pockets, that's fine too. That's part of the creativity of it being a junk journal. So, you know, I wanted to leave it pretty blank so that whoever gets this junk journal will be able to do with it what they choose to. So there's 3 of these pockets in each section. So there's a total of 6 in this book. And here I'm showing you the binder rings that I used to put the journal together. I did run into a little bit of difficulty, but it still looks good. So in this section, I just wanted to show how I used some of the rubber stamps to decorate those page pockets that I put in the journals, and I wanted to go ahead and use some of the rubber stamps that I got in the kit. And here is a paint swipe that I tried out on one of the pages using Tim Holtz Distress ink, and I really like the way that it turned out. So on this page I wanted to try, there's a shorter one that came with a kit, and I wanted to go ahead and see how that looked on the same page. And the detail on these rubber stamps is really nice, so I really like the way that turned out. And there's another one that's like a little paint splotch, so I wanted to put that on the top and see how that looked. So I just really wanted to showcase the rubber stamps that come in this kit, along with, you know, all the other ephemera and papers and stuff. So I'm going to put that back into the book and then show you how that looks in there. And I'm really happy with how that looks. And again, there's definitely room for more decorating possibilities. So I wanted to use some more of the stamps, and this one has a paintbrush and like an ink pen. So I took one of the other colors of the Distress ink that I have and inked those up really good on the rubber stamp to make sure that I got a really good impression, because I really didn't want to redo these pockets if I didn't have to. So my desk has a little bit of, it's like a farmhouse desk, so I just needed to make sure I was in the flattest area of my desk when I'm using these rubber stamps. So there's how that looks with the paintbrush and the ink pen. And I think they're really neat designs, and the detail is just really fantastic on these rubber stamps. So I do clean off my stamps once I'm done inking with them. That way I can just put it right away and don't have to worry about cleanup later. So that's what I'm doing here. Okay, I just want to show you just briefly that I went ahead and used some of the other rubber stamps to create another page layout. So I'm just going to fast forward to the end here when I have everything done, and then I'll show you what the finished product looks like. Okay, so here's what this page layout looks like. I went ahead and added one stamp to each side. I thought that was really neat, and I left the rest of the page pretty much empty, so there was a lot of freedom to do whatever they wanted to do with this page layout. So I am getting to the end of my book here, and on the very last page I decided I wanted to use the sheet of washi masking tape, it was called, in the kit, to cover the last page. So here I am pulling it out, and then I'm going to put what do you call this? Mod Podge on the page and paint it, and then I'm going to place that piece of washi on the last page, and that will finish the book. So here I'm just placing the sheet of washi down gently onto the last page. It's very thin and like tissue paper consistency, so you kind of have to be careful to make sure that it doesn't rip. So I do wait for it to dry completely. And here is the finished journal. This is the front cover. You'll notice that I did add some seam binding, pumpkin orange and smoky gray. These are available at my Etsy shop if you like either of these colors. The pumpkin gray, or the pumpkin, is only going to be available probably till December 31st, or if I sell out of it before that, I will have it linked in the description box. And then I also added one of the paintbrushes from the chipboard pack that came in the collection, and I punched a hole in it and I added an eyelet, and then I added it to the dangle on the front. And then I also made some little bead dangle charms using some seed beads, and I added a brass little heart charm on the bottom. So I really like the way that it turned out. Now the bead dangle charm is removable, so there's a little lobster claw here at the top, and the recipient can remove that if they don't want that on the book, or if they want to use it for something else. And I did use one of those ribbon clamps, so that will definitely stay on the book, but the rest of it is removable so that it can be out of the way if it's too bulky. So here I'm going to show how you can remove it. And I really like how this coordinated with the book. So I'm just going to set that off to the side for now. And then I'm going to show you what the rest of the finished journal looks like. So this is the final look of the cover. And you'll notice had a little extra holes where I punched the binding, but that's okay since it's a junk journal. I don't mind. And here I'm just flipping through the inside pages. I did add some of the washi that came in the collection on those signature pages. I flipped through it pretty quickly, and here you'll see the detail from the rubber stamps that I added. And there's the one that I did earlier with the water paint swipe. And here is the second signature. I added a clear pocket, and then I added some ephemera in there so the recipient can further decorate the pages using the pocket, the ephemera. And then I did add an extra pocket. It has sticky on the back, and I had an extra page or two of this, so I just slipped that into one of the pockets. And here I left it pretty blank, so the recipient can add pictures here or tickets or whatever. And here's what the finished back page using the washi masking tape sheet looks like. So that turned out really neat. It's got a very shiny sheen to it. And here's the back cover. So this is the finished junk journal, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. I'm actually going to be giving this to my daughter. I'm going to be going down to Florida to see her in a few weeks in September. She's having some surgery, so I wanted to gift this to her, and hopefully while she's recovering she'll be able to play around with this a little bit and write down her thoughts. I'm very happy with how it turned out. I really appreciate you watching this video. I know it was a little bit long, but I did want to share a complete process video using this kit. It's a really awesome kit. So if you are into junk journaling, you get a lot of material. So I definitely recommend this kit. And I wanted to say thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye-bye.